Yo, welcome back. How's it, world? Moving the Needle podcast. This is the Crank Brothers race review series, and I am actually pretty bummed because it's the last race of the season. We're going to break it down. They are synonymous with downhill racing. This year, winning that World Champs title 13 years in a row. My colleague here, another Crank Brothers ambassador, Sven, will correct me and say, well, what about the Sam Hill wins on the flat pedal, which they've obviously reintroduced as the stamp? Man, it's so cool to have them supporting it. They won both the men's and the women's overall title as well. I saw the Loic code going out. So if you want to get some goodies of Crank Brothers, now's your time. Man, what a season, Sven. I mean, downhill is alive and kicking hard.
Yeah, they won the overall, but they also won the race this weekend, which is what we're here to talk about. It was funny this week we're doing. I don't know why we just waited till now, but suddenly TJ Smith, the guy behind Film Smith Media, he just went on this like he basically just took bets on anything and everything. Like whoever you'd see trackside, you just take a bet. Like he was taking, they're all personal bets for him, but it's almost like he was the house. And then like Boris made a really bad bet. Boris bet that it wouldn't rain at all on finals day. I don't even know why he took that bet, but he put that down. So TJ was pretty safe knowing that he was going to win the Boris bet with the big money, and then he could take all these crazy bets. And one of the bets was, um, I think it was like the top. Basically, the bet was someone bet against someone. He saw George on the side of the track, and George was like, "I bet someone on Crank Brothers will take the win." And then TJ's like, "Yeah, okay." And then George is like, "Dude, like the whole of top 10 from semi is on Crank Brothers, like every single rider." So it was a pretty interesting stat. It goes a lot deeper than just the winners, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we could definitely pick apart. The majority is definitely on there, and it's for good reason, man. Especially if it gets wet or the conditions are suspect, like they were there, or inconsistent, like in snowshoe. Alan and I spoke about it a bunch. Well, I mean, we got away with murder. I say we. I wasn't there. I was pretty cozy on a couch with a time zone, with beer in hand in the evening. It was October. They took a risk doing it, but the pictures and the footage looked pretty cool with the autumn leaves, right? Like it was a totally different feel for you guys out there.
Yeah, I must say, photographically, and having come to Mont Ste Anne since basically more than 20 years for myself, is probably the nicest photos. But then I guess also what makes it nice is it's a different look at Mont Ste Anne. You know, if you go back to Fort William or Leogang or all these ones that we've gone to many times, you try, it kind of looks the same year to year. But then this one, even your like say an average photo looked great, or like a pan shot just looked that much better with the fall colors. And then a couple of the teams had some custom kits that were like fall colors themed, which was even added to it. But yeah, I remember literally when this calendar was announced, I looked exactly at the weather this time last year, and I like screen grabbed the weather that weekend, and they were having like negative temperatures. There was snow, which we could have had all of that. But then again, it is Mont Ste Anne, and we've seen in the past how even a wet race can still be a fair race, which is really what the most important thing is. We've seen Gwyn win in the rain here on that historic race, and the conditions most importantly stayed fair throughout the racing. So we did get wet on the final day, which we'll touch on. Like literally, they didn't have one practice run in the dry. The first run that all men and women had that has any kind of moisture on the course was the semi-final. So that's another whole thing to how do you to wrap your head around as an athlete. But yeah, I guess it's fitting, fall colors, end of season for generally, and it was our end of the season race, and a good one it was.
Yeah, Mount St. Anne, you can't say, oh, they pushed it a little late in the year, there's going to be rain. I mean, we've been there any time of the year. That place can rain. It is susceptible to the thunder showers, but it is one of the most fair racetracks under wet conditions. And you can almost, well, Stevie Smith proved it. You can put down almost Foster times in the wet if you're willing to roll the dice. And someone
Yeah.
like Jackson in his semi, man, I thought he'd showed his cards a little early there, but maybe that puts a little extra pressure on Loic going, shucks, he's that far ahead. I got to up my game. But Loic certainly played a smart tactical game the whole season. But we had a race where if we had had a different winner to Jackson, we could have had, since first time since 2003, that a different winner won each race in the men's. We didn't have that. So, crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like the riders and the storylines this year, I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, in ideal scenario, when you say who did you want to win, just for that very reason, for the narrative of a different winner at every race, just like a talking point, I had kind of wanted, and then also to go on the other key theme from the year with local riders winning on their local tracks. So we got Kolb and Valle in Austria, and then in France we have Benoit. So I was just like, how awesome would it be if we had a new winner and it was also a Canadian, and Finn, and he definitely, that was his goal. You could see it was go for broke run, which it had to be, especially when he was that close to. He had to basically do what Jackson did and put a winning run down and then let the cards fall as they do, and Loic could be the one where he finished would ultimately decide the title. But then, just seeing the fact that it ended up being a Canadian and just getting that, like, the feeling, the crowd's very knowledgeable at this race. They know like a lot more detail than in a couple of other. Actually, Fort William, you get a crowd like that. Leger, you get a crowd like that. But they had picked up from the semifinal how key the exit of the rock garden was, and there were like 2 or 3 crux parts of the track. If they made it through there was like an audible sigh. But when Jackson made it out of the rocks and he did that last left exit, that I think that's actually where Finn maybe crashed. There was like a massive like cheer, like the loudest of the day so far, and I got like goose flesh and not like teary eyed, but it was like just you want the rider to get out of there, and it's by no means like a done deal, because Greg Menard crashed like after that last year. But once he got out of that, the win was that much more possible and real. And then we saw the time gap, which we'll also have to talk about. It's been quite some time since we've had that kind of margin at a World Cup. Not to even mention Valle's time gap, which is even bigger and more impressive. But in the men's elite, that's a time gap worth talking about. That's going to be one for the history books. Like when we talk about those couple of runs that Gwyn has put down, and a couple of those historical runs, and that's going to be one of them.
Yeah, you can't hide the fact that away from that. That's a Sam Hill winning margin, Aaron Gwyn, a Kovarik back in the day. It was quite an interesting, different track. But you have to put that down, and you go back to, and I don't have all the stats, like they're all online, and I've looked up a bunch. But this is going back to someone in their first year elite doing 2 wins. Like, this is some seriously historic stuff. We got Greg Menard, who, yes, won a World Cup overall at a young age. He's the greatest of all time.
Track was his first one in 2001.
Yes. He's got that win, and he takes the title away from Volios in 2001.
He didn't take the win. He finished it, yeah.
But he took the title. And you're like, this guy's doing some pretty amazing things. I understand the pressure's not quite there being so young. And I think Petey, speaking of emotion, Petey was pretty emotional in a conversation after the race. And I think that's amazing having Petey in his corner. Eric Carter posted about Jackson, like, giving credit to Stevie Smith, like that's where this comes from. What Stevie was able to do there, and for downhill, he didn't just post the pictures that you sent to him or the cool shots. He found the footage, or maybe his dad helped him, and he posted that iconic video segment he did with Stevie Smith. So like he seems to have his head screwed on damn well for a kid, and hopefully that'll help him long run.
That video clip that you're referring to that Jackson posted, it came out to the day.
It is, right?
It was launched to the day 8 years ago So
How serendipitous is
besides,
that?
exactly, besides Stevie being important to all of us and every racer, and then every Canadian racer, just to have that, the timeline as well, match up to his win. And Jackson being the only rider with two wins this season, on paper, you would think that would mean he would have been like kind of end up on the overall. But then, unfortunately for him, and as the sport of downhill racing, he had that one flat,
Two.
besides having in his race run or
So
points. What?
let's remember that he had two flats in his race run. Yes, it was rain affected Val Nord, but Loic got a few points. Jackson
Yeah.
had a flat and snowshoe as well. Imagine there's no flat at snowshoe with Loic crashing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable what that kid did. And I don't know if you've watched the run. I know how busy you are and you're at the bottom and you got the screen, the look and feel. Have you taken time to watch Jackson's run? Like the
I've
bike
literally
technique, you probably haven't.
no. I've
Sven,
seen.
the technique that this kid used. Yes, there were people doing similar jumps, and it wasn't like a million different gaps. But every time there was a jump, he either found a different landing to propel him forward, or he got it so smooth, looked like a dirt jump track at stages, and he was just rocketing with forward momentum, and he was riding so attacking, but just free. I mean, he obviously could ride the most free. Loic said he was tight. It was so much pressure. Jackson had nothing to lose. He's already had a win this season. And that's what happens when a rider rides so freely. And Finn also, he rode so attacking. But the mistake he made, Jackson backed off there. As fast as Jackson was going on that left, it was probably a place where he knew that's where he lost it. And Finn was just so attacking. There was probably, if he did that 10 times at that speed, I don't know how many times he would have rode that out. It was he was giving it his all, and I think Jackson unfortunately had him on time anyway. I looked at the splits. So we have to give credit to this youngster. Like, it's ridiculous.
I guess it looked like if Jackson didn't crash, looking at those splits, and you can never deduce because you won't know how Finn would have done in that final one, but it looked like Finn might have been sort of a closer second than anybody else. You're talking about rewatching runs. I was also told I need to watch Lucas Shaw's run from last weekend when he crashed, and then apparently that's one I need to go watch. He just had a pretty mind-blowing run to get back up within time. Usually if I'm set up at a spot and I've been there for a few riders and I'm waiting, and if there is a screen, I will watch maybe the first three splits as much as I can, and then get down. But literally, Mont Ste Anne offers such a beautiful, big finish arena, and the way that the terrace is, it really is arena and a finished bowl, because you got this terrace bank from the side that the crowds fill up as spectators, and then you got this. You can shoot from the back, the side, the front, and the crowd is like huge. It was bigger than even last year's crowd, with the rain, with the bad weather predicted. So literally, I couldn't not shoot from multiple different finish locations in the final, and I got myself into the VIP area, which is another story in itself. And I was getting a remote camera set up so I could do a wide shot of the remote. So literally, I'm hearing the crowd's reactions, but I've got my head down trying to get the little magic arm clamp onto the thing. It's switching lenses. So now I haven't really shot anyone from up there, so it's a whole new angle, and I've got to go through the whole thing. And literally, like I said, when I heard that cheer in the rock garden in the fourth split, I was ready within 20 seconds from his run. I was ready to take the photo, and he was, So that's how that went down. I do look forward to seeing that run, and I spoke to both him and Loic on their runs specifically. But what I will just add to Jackson's run, and this is why I knew it was something kind of otherworldly and special. It doesn't take, because everything's in his stride. Like when does get wins or his performances, it's like almost like, yeah, that was fine. Like it was nothing hard or special. But I've never seen his eyes. So after the whole melee of the finish, maybe I saw him I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes after his win, before he got pulled off to do some other interviews. He came to me, and I've never seen his eyes that big and shell shocked. It's a different kind of look where it's like someone that's completely strung out. He like wasn't blinking. His eyes were massive, and he knew. It's the first time I've seen him surprised or impressed. That was something that it was more than what he expected, and we can add the interviews after the podcast and this, and you can listen to him and Loic's sort of exact words on how they approached and did this run. But for him to be, I don't know, not surprised but shell shocked, it had to be a special one.
Yeah, I don't think he can't really be surprised, but surely dreaming, and maybe he knew that the Stevie Smith thing was 8 years to the day. Like, you dream of these things, but you could only imagine his emotion of like, I actually did this. Could you write a better script? Where else would you want to win on 8 years down the road? Mont Ste Anne, yeah, you're in with a title hunt, but like, this is bigger than Jackson, actually. It's bigger than him himself, the rider.
Yeah, it's like you've spoken about it a lot of times because you've gone deep into the sports psychology, both when you were racing and even more so now. But he reached that Zen state in his run, and to be able to do that on when the conditions are like they are, to go. He rode like on 110% race run as if it was dry in the sketchy wet, which makes it that much more impossible to do. And there's the perfect race run, when you lay up all the splits. I know he didn't win
1.7 was the 1.7 better than his time on that long
so there's
track.
Actually,
could you imagine that? That's nothing.
Yeah, that is quite a bit for the perfect race run, but I was thinking it could have almost been him that would have had who had better splits or sectors than him.
Well, only Finn at the top. So that's what I'm saying. 1.7 on a 4-minute track. On a perfect run, like, he's winning most of the sectors. He won like all of them except the first one. And then he wasn't perfect at the bottom. Vergier was really good at the bottom, and Finn was better at the top, but he was within striking distance. So yeah,
So it's interesting that of the riders that needed to win and to win the title, well, you had Finn taking the top and you had Loris taking the bottom. So pretty much these guys, it's unbelievable that they were all able to deliver on what they had to do to win the title. And poor Loris, he had the easiest job. Had that result been Loris taking the win and Loic finishing where he did, Loris would have won the overall. That would have been enough for Loris to take the overall. Jackson had to do, I think Loic had to be outside of 6th place. But Loris, on his last training run before the semi, he had a massive crash on the Greg Menard gap. A lot more guys were jumping it, but a lot of fast guys that were jumping it this year were not jumping it because the rough rocks in the G-out that you pump through if you don't jump it, there was some of those rough rocks were gone, and that was the main reason for jumping it in the last few years. Now the setup into it was smoothed out and made easier, so therefore more people could jump the Menard gap. But a couple of the fast guys decided, hang on, we don't need to jump the Menard gap because a lot of the roughness that we were jumping has been cleared. Loris was now squashing the Greg Menard gap, and he caught his pedal. Like, there's one rock that is still there and it's spray painted pink. He caught his right pedal, literally going as fast as you can through that section, and it literally spat his bike 90 degrees, and he just cheese grated himself on the whole landing. Heavy crash. This just reminded me of something he told me. So I thought, this guy is shell-shocked. It's going to be hard to do an attacking run. His race run, and I only found out this after the fact, they taped his arm on.
No, for his semis or for his finals as well. I heard his semis he taped it on. Do you think the finals was taped on as well?
So he did it for both runs.
Oh and then God. He said it was quite good.
Exactly. So he said, he literally said, Sven, this is you're able to relax in way more places, because normally, especially this year, Mont Ste Anne used to be a track like for William where you would have your rest sections, or like Leo again, you had your rest sections. Those 2 rest sections are now 2 new woods, one new from this year, and then another woods section new already from last year. So he said now he's able to rest his hands in rough sections. And I'm like, dude, don't. I said, do you understand what you're saying? You are completely insane, because you're going to now want to do clipped in race runs. And then he's told me, and this is how these races are. He's like, yeah, but our feet are clipped in. So what's the difference? I'm like, the difference is your hand is taped on the handlebar. You can take your foot out, but you couldn't take your hand off. And he's like, yeah, but he's literally, and him and PA are the perfect pair to do it, because they love doing these things. I guarantee you, Loris he's going to experiment. He's had such a good experience with being taped in. He's going to be the guy. There's going to be a product that you can be kind of like how you clipped in on your shoes and you can get out. He's going to have some kind of thing in his grip where he's going to be taped in, but if he wants to get out, he can. And going to him and PA, I love looking at their setup more than anything else, because he is the biggest tinkerer. Everyone thinks it's Manar and the puzzle and the suspension, but Loris and PA are the 2 biggest tinkerers that are never resting. I don't know if you noticed, he was riding a different color bike to what he did quali on, right? And a different color bike means an all new, completely different bike. So like, he basically raced the bike that he raced Fort William on. That was the last time he rode that bike. But anyway, on that bike, his race bike, that now he's found a better way to clip in. So he has his grips. He runs the alloy lever, not the carbon one, because he prefers the feel of the brake. And then they got 120 grit sandpaper. So like very, 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 it's almost like water paper, that it's super, it's not going to wear through your gloves or fingers. It's almost like not sandpaper anymore. And it's super, super fine. And it's just the tiniest little smidge of grip tape that he's got on. But then they had to get a special double-sided tape, because it's so fine. You don't want to get thick double-sided tape, because then it makes a ridge and stuff and you feel it. So literally, it's the most comfortable brake lever I've ever felt, because I sweat a lot, so I can't really ride gloveless all the time. And with gloves, some gloves, when they get old, you lose that grippy thing. And further, for these 3 fingers, he's already got like the perfect grip, because he's got his grip. And then they shave off just where it, like literally that clamp bit, it's shaved this slightest little feeling. So those 2 guys have already got the best grip brake setup in the world. And now watch next year, we're going to see Loris clipped in, hands and feet and all.
So are we calling it clipped in or taped in?
We're going to call it...
so it's going to be like
the death grip, it's going to be the Vergier grip, you know? Interesting to see.
There is
Can you imagine? Way.
No, but I can imagine it, because I've done it myself, or been talked out of doing it. I don't know if Jonty talked me out of it, but I obviously broke my hand and then came back the second last year I raced. So people have played around with it, and people have done it. G's done it. And you normally only do the one hand, and it's because you're in the title hunt, or there's
you got to do a tear off or something.
Yeah, the tear off. So then you got to go back to the Bluetooth tear off.
Why don't they revisit that? You had those goggles, or Leov had them?
No, Leov had them. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth the money investment, because these days you race quite a lot.
A millisecond.
I know. I hear you.
If pushing that button that Leov had that did a little windscreen wipe, if that can save you 1/100th of a second, it's worth the investment. People are spending thousands and thousands of dollars.
I'm talking from the company to produce it, to then sell it to like 6 races. There's like the return on investment's not going to line up.
Yeah, but you can custom make these things for one-off products. Surely, it's got to.
I think anyway,
so. What's
the Loic suspension bike thing? And he was saying that Finn doesn't have it, and he was pissy about it. Like, is that a suspension compression thing? Have they announced what that is?
Well, you notice that Specialized, like they were caught with their pants down, literally, and Finn's bike was caught, and then
in the back of a van.
Sort of The I always looked a bit suspect. It looked a bit set up, but apparently it wasn't.
Was it like guerrilla marketing? Like it's leaked photos, but they did it on purpose?
Well, if it was, what they should have done then is when Loic wins the overall and you bring the bike up to the overall podium, that would have been, if I'm a marketing manager, it's like, all right, guys, take the skirt off. Loic's bike's going to be on display. And if Finn had won, well, as you saw after the leak, the whole top cover was now shown on Finn's bike, and then they also released some more detailed photos so you could work out the linkage. But Loic's, so your question was, is it different? If you're a marketing manager, that's when you would unveil, Loic's bike. But he's got something special, which is got to be tricky if you're, running the same suspension as your teammate. It's like, how does that work? Did Loic develop it independently, or is it only like, hey, you can only do special stuff for Loic? But that's like, you got quite a few other teams on your suspension. Like surely that's a tough one. Like, is Finn and Loic on who's on the better suspension?
Well, I mean, the suspension's probably in par, but I'm saying this thing they had with buttons and what it did, like, I don't research that much. I hope someone messages me. Like, I don't geek out on that as much as I used to. But he mentioned in the post-race... It's a lockout system. I mean, we had different valving and special stuff from Fox back when we were on Trek, and that's because Trek requested it, so we only could use it. Like, these things happen all the time. If there's money involved, who knows how it happens. But Loic did sort of half joke that, like, Finn was a bit pissy about him having it, and you would understand that. They're both technically in the title hunt. If Finn didn't go off track, he might have been ahead of Loic, but, Loic's earned the right to be the number one ride on the team. So sometimes there's only one part available. Who's going to get it?
Yeah.
So it's
this
super
track
interesting.
Of all the tracks, although I could be completely wrong because there are long piece sections that maybe a firmer setup will generate more speed. This is not one of those tracks really where that is going to benefit as much as some other tracks we have out there. So
I agree with that.
Yeah. But then again, you say that and these guys are only looking for hundreds and thousands. So, if Loic used it, even if he just used it out the start straight,
he claimed he used it twice.
And then so he would have used it out the start gate, and there was a very short before you entered rocks. But if you see how these guys are training their sprints and their starts, and you see at the finish line that they're looking for hundreds and thousands, then if he's only using it twice, that's more than enough. That's at least a tenth maybe. And that's a lot these days.
100%. Speaking about bikes, so GT just almost won a World Cup, and then they're dismantling the program. How ironic's that? Ethan Craig coming out firing, looking for contract, looking for a new contract / an increase to a contract he could have signed. Like, we don't know. Is he riding with pressure, or is he riding free because he's already signed something? Only time's going to tell us. So that's quite ironic.
Well, they didn't just win or come close to winning one. Ryan Pinkerton just cleaned up the back half of the season. Lucky for him, he didn't have to do it at this round because he ended up crashing out so bad and breaking some ribs. But
he seems like he could do that on any bike. You know what I mean?
Well,
Pinkerton.
No, but you say that, and you say like Rachel could have GT's last wins were with Rachel or whatever. Because she could have won on every bike. So it's really good to see the GT's bike, literally on a par with the greatest bikes out there at the moment. And as you said, like the race, that program has been through many highs and lows and peaks and troughs, just like a lot of programs. Even the Athertons for a bit went through a dip, and now look at them. But the fact that team is dismantling, and it's not just that team, and that's more than 25 years of racing. I mean, GT's heritage is racing. They say it's good times, but it's purely the whole program's built on racing, and for them to disband with a guy that could win a World Cup and got just second at the last World Cup, a guy that's won the World Cup overall, and if we had Jess Blewett racing, she's starting to pick up podiums. If she didn't get hurt at hardline, they would have been winning team of the day a couple of times along the way. So it's pretty sad that for some companies, this massive tightening of belt, like the first thing that got axed was the race program, because when they wanted, because GT will re-enter the racing field, But can you imagine buying your way into riders the level of Pinkerton and Ethan Craig now? Whatever they're saving in the next 2 or 3 years, they're going to spend way more when they try to buy their way back into a team of the level they have now. So, and I've worked for GT. They were my very first client when I did this full time in 2008. And they were maybe one of the first companies I sold a photo to of Lopes. Lopes and Hans Ray were my first two riders I sold photos to for money to GT. So yeah, it's pretty sad. But they haven't completely got out. They're keeping some grassroots developmental. There's a lot of local countries where there's actually quite a few GT frames out there. It looks like they're keeping Wynn's program in some way, shape, or form. So yes, they've got out the top end, but they're not got out the sport, and they're still going to be giving back to the sport and supporting some grassroots and privateer racing. So hats off that they haven't cut that completely.
Yeah, I mean, you've summed it up. I mean, my first, when there's like, I want that bike, like just it's
they wanted that yellow and blue.
No, it was the blue, yellow, and black one, the iDrive, and PD, Eric Carter, Lopes was privateer, but on the team. Dude, I'll never forget getting this bike. This was like when there were still prototypes, and then there was a scarcity to it, and this bike arrived back. Oh my goodness. It is such an iconic brand, and it's good to hear they'll be back. It's sad. It's ironic that this is when the riders start performing and the bike's clearly gelling with them, and they've had some few up and down bikes over the years. But that's, like you said, Atherton's had a problem, and people and teams go through these cycles. There's a lot of luck involved, Same as Greg, like we can't really talk about have a podcast without the damn goat being brought up.
Man,
but he's going through injury cycles and not gelling with equipment or things breaking and flat tires, and
just
whether he was going to win on whether he's going to you can't get momentum when you're just dealing with bad luck. Like, where do you get the momentum from? So it happens. Like Danny Hart as well. Danny's been on pace the last few races. Some qualifying results, splits. You're like, Troy, this is fine. Yeah. Troy really showed up. That's a nice way for him to go out. I've got notes of that. Really awesome to see Troy. It was probably a very tough year for him mentally, as well as Danny. It's part of the sport. The cliches don't make it any easier, right? For them to deal with and go home and get through an off season or in a contract cycle, right?
So you out of all those guys, you mentioned Greg first. I'm just reading between the lines based off what was loosely been said, because Greg has never come out to anybody, not even to any of his teammates, not even to any of the management or team owners or team managers at Syndicate and Santa Cruz. But in the way I see it, this was going to be Greg's last year, the retirement year, and he showed that, he got podium still. But then the last 2/3 of the season, all those things started happening with Greg. He's got to be in a very weird place, because like, you can't retire not having qualified for the final race of your final World Cup. Like, what's he gonna do? Like, hey, oh, by the way, I retired, and he didn't even get to do his final run. He would never have thought that he would be in that position. And then in the same way, you want to, as one of the GOATs, you want to go out on a high. And he sees that he can still be in touch, and very much so with the young guys. But I think this was going to be his retirement year, and then all these things happening. Now he's like, shit, I can't retire like this. I need to just knuckle down and retire next year, or it'll be like Rachel's, like, I wanted to do Fort William, then retire, but then that didn't go to plan. And will Greg be the same? I want to do Andorra. But then if you're going to do Andorra, you have to be race ready, and you have to train like you're ready for World Cups. You can't do a few Crankworks events and then race World Champs and then retire. Like, if you're going to be ready for World Champs next year, you got to train all winter. So it's like that's a massive ask for a rider, especially one of Greg that's already proven everything. You don't want to be like Kelly Slater, wins Pipe Masters last year, and he's like, oh yeah, I can still win events, and I can still maybe qualify for the Olympics. And then this year was like, he didn't really do that great. Imagine Greg does come back next year, but then he has another year like this. So, what does he do? Like, Greg, what are you going to do? Tell us.
He
literally told me he was going to retire, but now he's not. I don't know. Or is he?
Yeah, but that story goes back to the off season when I was at an event, and he said in front of 30 to 40 people, Fort William could be a fitting place to retire. So then I text him, I say, Greg, I think it came up in the preview or a podcast. And I was like, can I talk about this? You seem to have said it out loud. Could Fort William then be a place where you retire? You've clearly mentioned. He said, no, you can speak about it. I'm not hiding anything. And then, like you say, the way the year compounded badly, he's probably readjusted. He's not willing to say, I am retiring at the end of the year because if Worlds went well, those crew, One Life crew, were going to tackle him and force him to retire. And Roscoe was there as well. Sessler was there as well. So he was going for a fairy tale story, which didn't line up. And that's the challenge, which you've just said, is sometimes plans and life don't go the way you want them. Sorry?
Oh, there we go. Sorry, you glitched on me, but...
it still records in the background. We got some high-end tech here, dude. I'm learning all the tech. So, yes, so I agree with you. What is he to do? But maybe you now have to readjust, and you can't, okay, I'm going to go out at Andorra. I agree with you. Someone said, yeah, but he's retiring next year. He said it to Sven and misspent summers. I said, I listened to it. He said he's going to be at Worlds in Andorra. That could be a good place to retire. You ain't going to Worlds without doing probably a full World Cup season, because otherwise you're going to be so out the back. What's the point of doing that? So he has to do basically another full season. I mean, that's quite a lot of mental adjustment. But if anyone can adjust and say, okay, I've got another year to grind, and go out on my terms. But hopefully he's aware enough that if it doesn't go well, it's maybe still the time to retire.
Or, I just thought of this now.
Or?
It's not very Greg Menard-like, but in actual fact it really is, because it's his true inner demon, or his true inner self. Or he could do the Steve P 2016 World Tour, literally no training, probably too much drinking, and like 8 of the most sickest custom bikes ever. That's another. He could just do that and just literally not even train an inch.
Well, it's not going to happen if I was to bet, because it's Greg, and he can see that he's going to get embarrassed out there because he won't be in the finals. PD could at least cruise down and get to the finals. If he wins Worlds in Andorra, right? Yeah. Then maybe he's forced to do a retirement tour at a few races, like race in the Jersey. I don't think he should. Yeah. Come on. Yeah, and that's what they say. Hey, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. So he had a plan, and it didn't go to plan, and that's just the irony of racing in life, you know?
Yeah. Talking about punched in the face, did you see Jackson almost got punched in the face? He got clotheslined.
By who?
Did you not see it? It's on the live feed. So, and I'm going to give a slight in defense, because I'm thinking this is what one of the security or sort of event. Basically, you saw what happened in France when Benoit came down, and then it was just like storming of Normandy. Actually, no, that's probably the wrong way to describe it. But it was like chaotic, and it was amazing, but it also could have gone like pretty sketchy. You know, there was like a stampede. And this started happening with Jackson already. Actually, in his run, already after the 4th split, a drunk spectator started like running on the track, like on the step down, the Red Bull step down, and there's another little jump just off the step down, and this dude, I don't know if he was trying to cross the track or was it dare. He was like fully clothed, so it wasn't like he was streaking, thankfully. But he like stumbled and tripped, and he was so drunk, he would have been like lying on the landing, and luckily there was course security. And Zach, MTB Jesus, Zach Faulkner was fucking also there. And I'm just like, this is literally, I finally set up my camera, and I raise my eyes, and I look up at the side, and there's this fucking drunk guy. It looked like Mayor Media on the track. Anyway, they literally had to roll him off the track. He was so drunk they couldn't. He
yeah, I saw the rolling part. The rolling
okay, so you guys saw that? Okay,
best, dude.
Okay, I'm glad everyone gets to see that.
So I saw the guy roll him, and I was like, if he's just been tackled, you think you'd aggressively push back, but he just let the guy roll him off the track.
So that's amazing. You guys saw the live feed. Anyway,
yeah.
So literally,
but I didn't see that. That's where Jackson almost got clotheslined. I didn't see that part. Well, I mean, I know he's
that's coming. But... Okay, so then Jackson does enter sight, and then literally as he's gone off the Red Bull scrub jump, which a special mention to Loris Vergier yet again and Antoine Vidal, best 2 scrubs of the final. Jackson goes past, and then in the background of the shot, just like Benoit's run, there's people on track, and there's other guys that were taking photos still behind that, and they literally got blocked. They couldn't get a shot of Jackson crossing the finish line because there was already a storming of the troop. Now, Sebastian Scheck was in the other media zone, and also while this dude was rolling down the track and getting rolled, he saw a bunch of spectators right on the side of the track, on the inside of the finish bowl. So there were these metal like T barriers. They had quickly like unclipped. They'd done unclipped. It was like a military operation. They'd unclipped. So Jackson was near the rock garden. They like popped the one that keeps the side barriers down, like the T. It was like a premeditated thing. They were basically ready to storm. And Jackson enters the finish bowl, takes the win. The cross supports unpop. Fucking fence goes down. Jackson's coming in. Then the security that's in the finish bowl. Partly to keep the area safe for everyone and to keep us photographers out these days. He sees behind Jackson this massive people running down the track, and then suddenly this fucking storming of the Bastille in Quebec. People in the finish bowl, and then he just like first thing he does is like he's probably thinking, I've got to keep the riders safe and get him to the TV interview. I don't know what he's thinking, but what he basically did is just he like went to grab Jackson, but Jackson's short, so he ended up like a high rugby tackle, and then Laurie was trying to hug Jackson, and he got an elbow. Laurie hit the ground, bleeding nose, and this is to keep the riders safe. It was a bit overstepping, but there was a lot going on in the finish area, Andrew. That was these are those events that you remember, and this is why I still like sometimes on first day practice, and you're shooting like B practice at 8 a.m. and there's like no riders, and it's like, what am I doing here another year? And then you have a day like yesterday, and it's like, fuck, that's what I'm doing here.
I know, and back to why the races still do it. Like when I traveled to Fort William, I was like, what have I done? So far to get here, it's miserable. And then you watch the race and you're like, this is incredible. I'd pay my own money to get here, and we keep saying you got to get to a race if you haven't. And Jackson said he wanted to do the bike flip thing. Me and my brother have learned it on our hardtail. Step off the bike and then you hold it in your one hand, and then the bike does like kind of not really a tail, but does like a 360, and then you can get back to it. But he says it was too chaotic at the bottom. So it would be easier to get it done with a glove off, but he said it was too busy. So clearly he had it in his head. I'm going for the win. If I win, I'm going to pull the Stevie bike flip.
Where did you hear that?
I don't know. He said in one of the interviews. I think that was maybe when the broadcast cornered him. Yeah, that would have been great. We've had some epic tangents. I want to try give everyone credit. We can never give like perfect amount to everyone and women as well. But Gaetan Vij, has he only done 2 World Cups this year? Because I've seen him in practice. I thought I saw him in Leogang. But, that's where the sport's at. You got 7 different winners in 8 rounds, or 9 if you count worlds. So 8 different winners in 9 rounds. And then you've got Gaetan Vij. You're like, he's been at it for a long time. He's been on factory teams. He's been off. And when he puts it together, he like pops himself on the podium. You're like, well, how do we only have 30 in the final? Like, there's so many dudes that can get top 10s or podium or win. It's like the sport is crazy at the moment. It really has changed. And for the better, there's more competition.
And that's why I do like the fact that, it was a fair race, but I do like it when there's a gnarly conditions or a gnarly track where literally you see new faces like Gaetan, like Ethan, in the podium or in the top 10 that aren't normally there, solely on pure fucking riding skill and talent. And some of the established guard or the usual guys that are prepared better, mentally better, train harder, have a stronger factory team, they the normal sort of people that you expect. But sometimes when there's a gnarly conditions, then you do get these rarer visits to the top 10 and in this case to the podium with Vij. He's a hardline rider. He's like, but it's just nice to see it.
He's the Kirkcaldy of the World Cups, doesn't he? He almost wins practice all the time. He's quite rapid in practice a lot.
He's super strong and it's just nice that like he's able to just get a podium. And I think that Loic said, like, out of all the people, when he looked up and he saw like Vij was there, he was like, "What are you doing here? You know, like, how come? Why?" And it's not like it's not
he
like
hasn't been there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like when you come down at Lord and you look up and it's literally you can't do a run in the rain at Lord. You know, and you have a surprising top, people on the hot seat. But so it's cool that you have a few gnarly events like Ludenville, and a few sketchier yet fair events like this one where guys can rise to the top based on sheer talent. Yeah, and I don't know all the details behind Vij's like missing the first half of the season, but yeah, so he's got it's when these guys put in the hard work and then miss out bits of the season. It's hey, what a better way to finish the year going into the off season for just for that to pick up the tools and do the hard work and do the graft. Like if you have like Vij. It just makes the off season like 100 times better, regardless of him getting noticed.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Up to level support. It's just like the payoff, there's anyway, yeah. What a lad.
Yeah, and you've got the likes of Bernard Kerr on the podium again. We all know Andy Kolb's like podium regular and winning. I think there's a few guys that are seriously sort of stepped up. And to me, the changing of the guard, you speak about it over the last few years. Like yes, Loic won the title. Yes, he's the most experienced. He's of the elderly statesmen of some of these guys. The changing of the guard has 100% happened.
Yeah.
The younger crop, you can't, like these bets you're taking. Okay, cool. Well, let's have a few bets on the winner of the first World Cup next year. Well, I ain't putting my money down. Hell no.
Yeah.
How do I know who's going to win? There's how many names in the hat now of people that have won, people that won this year, and people that could win.
Yeah, I mean the top 10, other than Ethan and Vij, the rest of the 8 riders were kind of the established sort of top riders. But then just outside of the top 10, we got Baptiste Perrin, we got Ocean again, like in 12th. We got Dylan Maples, his career best result. Like, I mean, talking about Phil that was older, but David Palizaro, the Italian, and Richie Rude. I mean, there's there, like you said, there's new names that are becoming regulars. But what a story with Dylan Maples, just actually now realizing 42 plate in 13th. I mean, Vij is like an 80 something plate, which was also one of the bets with TJ. But to see Dylan Maples, like what he was able to do with the Commensal Makov team by earning a spot, like he's kind of was the reserve rider, like in F1 when they bring in a replacement driver. Once they'd lost both Thibaut and Almery, it was hats off for them for doing that. And look what he's able to achieve with a little bit of extra help, a little bit less of him doing his own stuff on the bike or just, it goes to show it does take two. You can get there on your own, like they have, but then having the backing of a solid and experienced team. Maples with his best results of the year, and a couple of races now. I mean, you saw how he supported it.
Yeah, you know who Dylan Maples. Yeah, I've been following that story as well, and I've followed. He really, like, his technique looks great. Like, I think it was going to come, and it's nice that it just helped. There wasn't sort of too much pressure. Like, I'm on a factory ride, I have to prove myself, and you'd have a bunch of crashes and an injury. He's given himself a bit of time. There was a lot of patience there, I think, with Maples, and that's really cool when you see that come through. And especially going into an off season, maybe that helps with some of the contracts and things like that. What's going to be interesting is, maybe before we segue to the women, and I'm sure we'll come back, is so someone like Gwyn, like the sport's gone up another notch, more riders in the fray, and he's been commenting how fast the guys are going, and you've got people like, maybe before we got the Gwyn, who that's going to be a question mark, but we know how fired up he'll be, and then Dakota Norton, who's had another crash and then surprised himself with the time at the bottom. And he had a flat. He rode a flat through the finish line. And it's like he's saying, I'm willing to crash to get the win. So I'm willing to ride that speed, that razor's edge, because that's what it takes. So that's another guy like stepping up he'll be in that winner's
Yeah.
circle before you know it. He's sort of
I
got the
think very
confidence and the
soon.
speed. It's just going to
Yeah.
have to click on a certain track.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting to see. There's all the rumors. We're not sure what's happening with Intense for both Gwyn and Dakota. And interesting to see if there can be a team of the nature that Gwyn needs to even come back to race. He's got decisions to make, and a lot of it might be outside of his hands in terms of new teams, big teams, or if there is a spot in a team. Dakota's in a really good place, being the fastest unsigned rider going into the year. All the other riders ahead of him, sort of on paper and on potential, are all locked in. So Dakota, there's always that one guy that will do well on the. Like next year, whoever's up will actually do really well because there's not a lot of guys up, and there's not going to be a lot of new teams. So he's going to basically demand and supply here. But this year, Dakota's in the driver's seat when it comes to negotiations, and he's going to be the one benefiting most. And then, people like Ethan Craig, that I told him at the beginning of the week, do not sign anything this week. Wait till Monday, and like it's a gamble because he's literally in negotiations with a couple of people. And he didn't, and fucking he's on the podium. So literally, I don't know how much more. Imagine he signed a contract last Friday and then signing a contract this Monday. Like, how much more do you ask because you can get second in the world and beat Loic Bruni? Like, how much do you think, Andrew? Like, if he could have got like 70K, now he can get 100K. Like, what is that worth? I'm a bit out of touch.
Yeah. I mean, I'm less out of the touch. So I don't want to let on too much, but that is worth something. So he went from no podium to ticking a podium. Yeah, if you're saying, I don't know what he's on, I don't know what he's going to get or what he could get, but if you say he was offered 70, is all hypothetical.
I'm just
don't
sort of,
quote
that's
me.
hypothetical.
It's just a number. Okay, let's just throw the number out there. Then afterwards, you're damn well worth 90 to 100 because I think the podium guys are closer to six figures. So, and again, don't quote me on it. I think, but on that point, right? So, yes, that's a tough place to be. But if you have a contract before the race and it's pretty decent, yes, you could bet on yourself. Whether you signed it or not, I would say that it takes the pressure off at the final race versus someone that goes, my inbox is empty and my phone's not ringing. That's a really tough place to race from.
Yeah.
I just think. And then back to the Gwyn thing and even the DAC thing. Yes, supply and demand, but maybe unpack that. So for Gwyn, it could be a challenge because of who he is, what sort of salary he demands as well as deserves for what he brings to the table. And sometimes the budgets at these companies are not there, and that's in this contract cycle.
Yes, exactly.
And
that's where we're at this year.
Dak could be the fastest rider available, but people go, but I've only got money for a top 10 guy. That's my budget. And then Dak's saying, but I'm a race winner type guy.
Yeah,
I need triple that. And then, so it's like there's supply and demand, but if teams don't have budgets and because of this sort of plateau in the industry, he might be one of the most unlucky guys with teams folding and cycles and stuff like that. I hope he gets what's deserved now this year.
Are you there? You froze up. Hello?
I can hear you, but if you need me to repeat anything.
No.
The recording's still going.
Yeah, no, I'm 100%. Yeah, you're right. What I have noticed, and is exactly what you've just said. You're actually 100% right, Andrew. There is actually a lot more interest in top 10, top 20 riders right now, and this year, because no one's able to sort of come to the table with like solid, outlandish offers and contracts, they've all actually got very, very, very good bonuses built in, higher caps, higher bonuses for podiums. So you hit the nail on the head. Like, this is what you might not, the companies can't afford a contract, but they can roll the dice on, or they can invest in bonuses and stuff. So I think that's where we're at this year. There's a lot of guys in that top 10 to top 20 that are free agents, and the bonus structures are definitely looking good for next year, if not the complete contract.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say it in tongue in cheek. The riders got themselves to blame. Bloody 7 different winners this year, or 8 different winners. So everyone's
who you gonna
market
bank
share's
on?
gone up, and the market's busy declining. It's like it's so ironic. But over to the ladies. Obviously, I mean, okay, I'm not taking anything away. She won 3 of the 4 splits, or 4 of the 5, smashed everyone. Not everyone stayed on their bike. And I'm going to say this. First, I should say Veronica Wittmann deserves credit, because people are like, everyone crashed. She decided not to crash. She mentioned that she knew it was tough. People would make mistakes. Like, part of racing is a strategy and how fast you're going to ride. And she decided to stay on the bike in the rocks, which she did. And she's got her best result. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yes, she didn't crash, but also before the rain and in the dry, she looked better than she has all week. And TJ, who's the filmer for their team, that was one of his bets. He says Vera's going to be on the podium, and someone. So it's cool to bet on your own rider, but he's TJ is looking at riders every single run, just like me, and he knew that wasn't a outlandish bet. And I forget who he took the bet with, but basically he's like, that's a big call, because she hasn't had a bad year, but she also hasn't been someone you'd bet for the podium, And he bet her on the podium, and she didn't just get on the podium because she didn't crash on the rocks. She rode good all weekend, so I'm really glad it did end up on the podium for her this weekend.
I agree. Like, it didn't come out exactly how I was intending. So I'm
glad
you stepped in there. But I mean, her first split is 4th. So it's like, hang on, she's riding the pace. It's not like she was 9th at the first split and then everyone fell off. And speaking of that, I mean, Marine is on a tear though. Yes, she crashed, but first at the first split, second, and then second. And she is 0.5 back from Valley. So there was a race on our hands. There was a race on our hands there in the ladies. It wasn't a 13-second gap. Credit to her. She laid down incredible season to Valley. I mean, so awesome to see. But to see Marine back there fighting properly, not just when Valley's not around, she can win. It's no.
Yeah.
She's now going to put the pressure on Valley going into next year.
Yeah, and the same goes for Tane. It's taken both Tane and Marine sort of a whole year, if not even more. This has been like almost like a train, like how to train yourself back up to race pace for both of them. And you said Marine took the first split, and Tani was second at the first split. So both of them are, and we'll see, hopefully see Miriam Nicole back next year. So it's going to be. We've kind of missed them being within touch and challenging. Vale for the win in the beginning of the year was mostly like Nina. That was the big challenge to Vale. So if we have Pom Pom back, we have Tani back, we have Marine back, we've got Mille that's clicked into another gear from the midpoint of this season. So like next year, it's going to be sort of like the last 2 or 3 years before this. It's going to be like quite solid and hard. It's going to be race. It's going to be, I don't want to say proper racing. It's going to be even more exciting racing in the women's next year, because everyone's looks like they ready to battle again.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because Pom Pom, hearing her, she's like, yeah, some of the conditions were tough and it's a lot of stress, but she wants to be back there. Like, she's really seems hungry, and watching these ladies do what they do. And you mentioned it, Nina. I mean, she talks the talk as well. She wants to win these races. She's not satisfied where she's at. She had obviously an horrendous race in Mont Ste Anne, but she's really stepped up to be there and thereabouts, like every single race. I mean, Alan and I speak about it a bit. We certainly might need more than 10 in the final with the depth of field here in the ladies. That's going to be one challenge. There's going to be some proper names maybe missing
Yeah,
out here and
I'm
there
wondering
with
how that's all
everyone
going to shake
healthy and
out. There's going
stuff.
to be, this was the first year with the new organization, not just for the broadcast, but for changing, setting some of the defining what downhill is as a sport and the rules and the structure and the calendar and the schedule. Are we going to see the semi-final disappear, or was it a well liked or well received or the broadcast numbers? Are we going to see a higher number in the final, but not as high as 60, and do away with the semi? Or like what's going to happen out there? So there's a lot of stuff that remains to be seen. And we'll see. That next year's Open is in Fort William, followed by Poland. So it's going to be, we'll see come next. Is it May? Beginning of May? Yeah.
Well, I mean, we said we need to get through a year, and everyone had their opinions and stuff, but the sport is certainly alive and kicking, and the riders just put on a show. I mean, the scripts and the storylines and the stuff we got, sometimes I get on these calls, and okay, we had another race. I'm like, wow, we certainly did have a race. Like, didn't expect that. Or how, the winning, Kolb in Austria and Jackson in Mont Ste Anne, and technically Loic won in France, and then Benoit got his first race in France, but you'd probably pick Leger to win a race over Ludenville for the crowds.
Yeah.
Valley doing what she did. I mean, yeah.
And this
It's
win
like
margin,
it's just incredible. I'm actually speechless. So that doesn't happen too often.
This like 4-second win margin with Jackson and a double digit win margin. Like Rachel's the only one that's had double digits in the recent memory. She's had it a couple of times. And yes, some of the other faster riders crashed in the rocks, and that is the 10 seconds. But like, how easy or enjoyable must Valley's race run have been for her? So always Sunday morning, I make a point of like dipping my head in, because a lot of the men aren't there yet. So I dip my head in, literally in with those three, Marine, Nina, and Valley, and just seeing usually the mood's pretty similar in all three of those pits in warm up morning before on race day. And it was the same. Nina and Marine, like just quiet and focused, and I'm like quite fly on the wall. Like maybe I give them a nod or a smile, but I'm not like their buddy anymore. I'm not chatting. With Valley, I'm sort of eavesdropping, just keeping, letting them continue. But she's on the warm up bike, and her and Greg are like talking, and I'm like, okay, they're planning how to handle today. And then I'm like, what am I hearing? And what they were talking about, they were discussing how many drinks she should have before she does her finish line interview. Okay, she's already wrapped the title up, so she knows regardless of how she finishes on the day, she's going to get pulled in for the overall interviews. And this is what they were like. This is her biggest worry of the day. And as an athlete, to ride with such freedom and weight off your shoulders, and all you're thinking about, they settled on 2 drinks, by the way. They decided that 2 drinks.
I was going to ask.
Yeah. She comes across as very chatty and personable, and I'm like, Gregor, and then how many drinks does she become like drunk, basically? And he's like, 3. So it was literally like, when you're playing, when you're playing like pool, and you have that, like, you play your pool game increases or darts or whatever, and when you've had 3, 4, and then at some point you're like that 4 or 5 beer, you're but the best pool game, but then you have one more. I guess that's Valley's. When she goes to 3, then it's just too much, and as these trained athletes are. So that was imagine now going on the start gate, and it's like, I can like have fun, showcase my riding, but it's not the kind of conditions you can have fun in. There's a lot of risk, but man, 10-second plus margin, and hats off to her. She's like a worthy winner, worthy having sewn it up with a race to spare, and then able to have fun on the run, but still put down a heater. Awesome.
It's so cool, and she's only 21, so she wants to be a 21-year-old and go have an off season, and I think the more she does that, balance, the longer she'll stay in the game, because it really is stressful, and this pent up sort of energy that you put into a season. You can hear these riders. Like Loris at Snowshoe was tired, mentally drained, and especially this week, probably like you said, that crash on his thumb. And I understand that feeling all too well. When you could just relax and stop thinking about the next race and the next tire setup and suspension and all that. So, I mean, incredible for her. And that is awesome insight that they were able to sort of enjoy the last race, wrap the title up, come and ride your bike, enjoy it. And, we did forget, and so sorry, Cammy. Cammy should be back next year. So you forgot about the danger woman. The danger woman.
Well,
She'll
I guess
be
what I
hungry
meant
for next year. So imagine.
Yeah, I guess what I meant is Tanya and Marine have come. They've taken a long time to get back from injury. We've seen with Cammy, like when she's back, she's back. There's no like taking time to get back from injury.
Yeah.
She's hungry. And when someone's like, she's like posting shots from last year at Mont Ste Anne, like, she's very, very, very much in the game mentally and wants to be there physically. You can tell kind of by what they're watching and paying attention. Some people like don't want to watch the live feed or if they're injured or whatever. She's 100% a competitor and she's watching everything that goes on. And talking about next year and being prepared, and we're talking about Vale's going to have a good off season and have her 2 drinks before the interview and probably more drinks after. She's already got next year's bike and she's already testing it and she's already going to be doing.
Who has?
Vale. I'm not sure. Was she obviously until January 1st?
Can you tell us which one? I was going to say, so you can't tell me which one it is, so it's not a Trek.
Well, no, Trek might have a new bike, so she's going to be on a new bike. She's going to be filming her. She's going to be filming a Death Grip part on the new bike because Death Grip was meant to come out before Christmas. This is probably the biggest. Like, we maybe not allowed to talk about Death Grip, but she will be filming her Death Grip part on the new bike because I guess Death Grip's coming out after January 1st now.
Oh, I'm not taking that out. It's not my fault if you weren't meant to say that. I'm not taking any of that out.
Do you see that little skinny thing that Brendan's got going on this year at Rampage? Oh, my God. I'm so nervous for those guys.
The Canyon thing.
Just everything.
I know. I lose just everything.
Just
we are
everything,
you're just a proper father now, Sven. You're like, actually, you're a proper father now. You know what it's like to have a child.
Talking of being a father, like, so this finish bowl, super thick with crowd, and now I've got like a backpack on, and I've got tripods and umbrellas, like making my backpack wider, and I'm like running to move from spot to spot. You've got like 3 minutes to get to another spot, see if it works, get set up. But sometimes you got to go from A to B, and it's quite further than 3 or 4 minutes. So like for Vija's run, I literally like was in complete no man's land. 4 splits up. I looked up and I didn't really have a shot, and I just like tried to get a shot of Vij, and also kind of wasn't worried that I wasn't in a spot. I used him as the guy. Okay, I can move while Vij is going because like if I miss him, it doesn't matter
because he's not going to get on the podium.
Because he's not going to get on the podium, and he's not a client rider of mine. So I'm like, I can miss Vij. It's not the end of the world. Fuck, dude, it's one of my best photos from the
but it's fair.
It's one of my best photos. Yeah, it's just a random. I'll just do a pan. I'll do a pan.
Let's try clip this.
I'll send it to you. Yeah, and I got like 2 shots of him. And same with Bernard. I was also not sorry, Bernard. I kind of did want to be in a good spot, but the crowd was so intense that I had to climb a pole because I got to the spot and I couldn't see over the heads of the crowd, and I just saw this snow blowing fence pole, and I just climbed up it, and I got actually 2 sick shots of Bernard as well. But I was using him as my move guy because anyway. But I digress. Talking about what do you say about kids now? Because I'm a dad, so I'm running through, and normally I would be like, excuse me, sorry. But now everywhere I saw, there were fucking French poodles and babies. I don't know what's going on in Mont Ste Anne. There's more babies on backpacks and front packs and on father's shoulders. Everywhere I just saw babies and poodles. And I swear to God, I was just like,
no,
that's why I couldn't, for Bernard and Vij, I couldn't get to spots because there were too many fucking babies and poodles. And now, as you said, I'm a dad. So I'm like, normally I would just charge through, and my tripod or my umbrella would like clip people, and I would just be noisy but still manage to get through. But now I've been way more considerate being a father, and I was like, dude, I can't like even come close to tapping this baby with my tripod or umbrella, because
with your. Imagine you knock a baby with your fisher. But it's I don't know the word, what it's called, but you know when you're buying a new car and you keep seeing the car on the road? Like you want to buy this new car and then you just suddenly wow, there's so many Audis on the road. But now you're like, like you're missing Ziggy. So you're like, you've just got like this subconscious thing about babies. But the worry is, are you getting a poodle? Why are you seeing so many poodles?
No. Dude, of all the dogs, they were just these, and they were the big poodles. They weren't the little ones. They were these like
it's a sign, dude. It's a sign. It's a sign. Never. I'm going to message Anke. You're getting a poodle.
I'm not a poodle. Definitely not a poodle guy. Not a poodle guy. Especially like those poodles that they take.
What would you be in a dog? Poodles? What would you... I wonder what your spirit dog would be. Like, what would your dog... like dog's owner looks like its dog.
Airedale Terrier.
Who?
Airedale Terrier.
I don't even know what an Airedale Terrier is. Okay, I'll look it up. Airedale Terrier. Maybe we can clip this one.
Airedale Terrier. They use it to hunt lions, and they're just super smart. And I had Airedale Terriers growing up as a youth, so I'm going for Airedale Terrier.
They're super annoying and argumentative.
Yeah, they're stubborn. They definitely have their own.
They're stubborn. That's a better word. They're stubborn. Yeah. I think we've done pretty well here. We've had a pretty civil conversation about racing, but we agree on a lot of points. There were mostly a lot of points to agree on. I was going to ask you, so the tape...
What happened in the juniors? Was there something in the juniors? Was there anything in the juniors or the semis that we missed?
They removed the bunting tape. Did you like it for photos or not?
100%.
I don't know if they did that at Snowshoe. It was better for photos. It did look quite cool, I must say, like where they removed most of the bunting.
No. Are you talking about the little bits that used to be between the green poles now and then? You talking about that, or are you talking about in general?
Yeah,
like everything.
Yes. That's what I'm. No, not in general. I'm not. No. I'm talking about the little green bits. They basically took the little green bits away. They could hook your pedal. That bit.
I wondered if they just hadn't shipped any to US and Canada, but it wasn't an issue. And the live feed, you pretty much they're covering like top to bottom, except for last weekend where they missed a very key part of the track. You can't go outside the tape anyway. There's marshals and cell phones, so you don't really need it. And if it's a bit safer for the riders without it, then. But as a photographer, fuck, it's amazing. When we go back to the enduros, and then there's this horrible like course tape that's sagging come race day. It's been stretched by the wind. It's been stretched to the crashes. There's knots and the pole's in the wrong place. It's amazing. I love it's hard for me to think how we like imagine going back to taped courses. It would be like going back to the 50s. It would be horrible. Actually, the 50s.
Jonty said in the woods, it's the woods on the broadcast is tough to see because you can't always see where the edge of the track is. So it kind of looks like the guy's just ripping through his local woods. But out in the open and visually, I liked it. When those S turns, the kink, I'm like, did he? And sometimes is he close to the edge? Did he set it up? What happened?
And sometimes it looks like they cut a course because of the angle of the camera. And actually, a couple of riders do say, like especially when they turn it up on their race runs and they blow wide, it's like they say that a tape would help them stay on course. But then equally more riders say, come race run, you know exactly where you're going. It's not like your first practice run on the track. So, but I can see how it is a visual help for the riders to stay on track when you're turning it up. It keeps you, if you get offline, it's easier to see where the track boundaries are if you're having a mishap and you're getting offline. I think everyone's in favor 100% for that, and it's way more eco-friendly, I guess. And
I know it looks pro. I must say, like it is something different. We didn't know what to make of it. I didn't make a big thing of it in the pre-show because the course is going to be the course. But the riders
it's frozen up. So
there's normally marshals everywhere.
Yeah. Okay, you're back.
You got me?
You back? Yeah.
Wicked. Yeah, it must be that St. Anne internet, but you must be itching to get home. That's a long season. What are some key takeaways for you on the season? Like away from maybe race results or most improved riders, like how are we leaving this season?
I actually, Andrew, you caught me there. I normally have an opinion or an answer for most things. Literally, I haven't had a moment to reflect on the season as a from a macro on a whole. Even like, man, I had a 3 hour. I finished editing on Sunday night or Saturday night from Daniel at 5 a.m. and then I got up and shot cross country all day, and then somehow fell asleep during my cross country editing, and I woke up at 4 and finished the edit, and then I got up now. So I haven't thought. I guess the key takeaway is the racing. It's in a very healthy place. The industry is tightening its belt just, unfortunately, Enduro is getting a bit more of the brunt of that. There is a Yeah, I think, like you said, it's the first year. The teams and the riders have seen it. I know the non-elite teams are not very happy with the status quo of them being sort of paying a lot more and getting a bit worse a deal than previous years, and wanting maybe more of a say, like kind of, and more information flow, more communication, I guess. It's end of the season and we don't have a schedule, which I'm sure will probably drop before you even publish this podcast. But yeah, on the whole, I'm more cared about the sport, and the racing is been awesome. Yeah, we got new blood and old blood still hanging in there. So as far as the racing goes, it's great. It's ended enough to make me look forward to next year and not dread next year in terms of work wise. And do I want to? How long? I have a milestone birthday tomorrow, so probably when this podcast's out. And I was like, can I see myself still doing this? And I was like, hell yes is the answer. Maybe I need to be like Warner and get some beard dye and keep me busy.
Well, man, thanks so much for all the contributions and to the sport in general. So I would certainly agree. And that I was going to say, so with it being so exciting and not being able to predict the winner makes your job way better, right?
Harder,
like not knowing
but better.
who you're gonna yeah, more difficult but better. You don't
Yeah.
know who you're gonna have to run after to get those misspent interviews, and you're not sure who the pressure's on to get what picture for you. I mean, we do that sucks. Like a person that dominates a sport then makes it boring. Like how ironic. So you always want a different winner. You always want to not know what horse to back.
Yeah. And with riders of, say, Loics and the fact that I wonder, it's going to take, maybe that Jackson will be the next guy that will maybe sort of dominate like you were able to do a couple of years ago. You remember, it wasn't that long ago where there was only one extra spot on the podium. There was 4 fixtures, like those 4 were without fail 80% of the time going to be on the podium, and there was one guy that would rotate in to get that 5th spot, or 4th spot. And now, the problem with me the only thing that's scary and it's tough, got to be tough for like Cami and Pom Pom and Tane and Marine, and for the guys, the injuries. You can't win a race or an overall without getting hurt along the way. And as long as we can keep pushing on rider safety, helmet safety, concussion protocols, it's, I've always said if we can get the World Cup numbers up, have a throwaway race, but then will that make it better or worse? Because I don't know. I think
with what you've said, I've said throwaway race for a while. I've said I would like a throwaway race, and maybe with these courses are getting gnarlier, people are having to risk, so there's injuries, there are more flat tires, there's a lot more crashes and injuries. And it wasn't long ago that Amri won 4 races in a season, so it can still be done. and Umri's going to be back, but with the level going up, everyone's pushing each other, and that's why the crashes are happening. That's why the injuries are happening. The courses are getting taped a bit straighter to shorten them. We've got to keep an eye on the course safety as well, because these guys are not going to hold back.
Andrew, the courses are not getting gnarlier. The bikes are getting faster, and the riders are getting better.
Fair.
The marginal, the incremental gains to suspension and tire technology and kinematics is allowing these riders to ride faster, feeling safer to ride faster. And yes, some of the courses are being made quicker for the live feed, so we've got to keep an eye on that. And if you have to slow it up, then that needs to be done, because speed is what equates to serious injuries, not difficulty of track. So yeah, it's pretty scary of how you can never imagine that the bikes can get better and stuff, and but it's going to be even scarier when the bikes are better and the riders are going to go even faster. Shit.
Yeah, so maybe that's what I mean. Like, it's a chicken before the egg, because the bikes have got faster and the rider talent is increasing and they're all pushing each other. The course that was safe is now becoming less safe. So yeah, I think you've summed it up there. No, I appreciate that. And that's where the youngsters coming up, like this Asa Vermetti guy. How the hell's a kid like that go so fast? Well, the equipment...
Dude, hang on. Asa. Yeah? All right. He's sneakily, because they haven't allowed under 18s to be course sweep, because Finn had that job, and it was like going to preschool, and he learned all the World Cup tracks and then just smoked people. Well, anyway, so that's not been allowed. But anyway, somehow being West Virginia, Asa did one day of course sweeping with a GoPro running, so he knows exactly how fast he was. Dude, this kid was course sweeping during elite training, and he did like 3 or 4 runs, and I saw 2 of those runs. He was the fastest guy, noticeably just visually, so not on stopwatch. He was the fastest guy on 2 sections that I saw. He does know the track. He's raced it quite a bit, so he has, I wouldn't say an advantage, because elites have been training already for 2 days. This was his first day on the track that week, and he was the fastest guy in 2 sections. So fuck, this junior category, this junior racing is just look where Pinkerton's ended up. I believe the junior winner would have been 7th in was it the qualies? I think the junior winner of qualies would have been 7th. Or there's something. So even like not having a Jackson or not having a Pinkerton racing, there's like all this junior talent. Next year, that little kid's, he's just. And there's more in the wings, and there's a girl in the wings that's not even going to be racing next year, only the next year, and she's like already getting numbers. So, holy shit!
Yeah, well, it's access to information, video, access to better bikes at an earlier stage. It's no wonder it's happening in all sports, and now we're finally seeing it in downhill. Someone at 16 can perform like that.
Well, and because they're grown up with their parents, like literally their parents were racers in this modern era. The skateboarders and surfers, their parents were pro race competitors. And so it's no longer like this is your kid picking up the sport for the first time in his family. Like they're coming from, you got racer parents. And yeah, it's nuts. Yeah.
Do you think?
There we go.
Well, some enduro riders coming over. Speechless. Yeah, there you go. Harriet deserves a mention. Throwing it on the podium is pretty cool for an EWS race. And Richie Rude, is he going to do more? What's the deal here? Is he going to do more downhills, less downhills? What's his deal?
I'd say more. The fact that he can make a final, even though there's a reduced field, once the reduced field makes qualifying easier. But then from qualifying in the semifinal to make finals, then it's like you are against the 60 best guys in the world. And he did, top 20 on that with second downhill race, like on a new bike that's developing, like if I was Richie, like, fuck, why not? But, obviously his bread and butter in terms of his job, his day job is probably when there's doubles, he will do enduro. But for sure, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?
No, definitely. Sven, this has been epic. I'm going to start an outro, but normally that's when your brain comes alive.
No, I have nothing left, dude. My brain is
Are you
fried.
good? You've had no sleep.
It's a long.
Your brain is fried.
No, it's been a long year, and there's nothing else to say.
Yeah. There you
Yeah,
go.
unless
Sven Martin, thanks so much to him. Thanks so much to Alan. I think Eddie Masters, Win Masters popped in. If I missed someone else that helped with these Crank Brothers race reviews, my bad. I've also had a long year considering I was at some of the races. I follow it. What an epic year. This was your Crank Brothers race review, synonymous with downhill racing. Sven helped me realize they won basically everything. And if you had someone going around doing stats, I'm sure it'll be the majority of the riders. But it's not just the pedals that they are doing. They have got shoes by the likes of Lucas Shaw, Troy Brosnan, Benoit Coulange, Camille Belange. It is unstoppable. They got epic stuff. Sven's about to jump in. What's the smile?
Ken Roxon runs their shoes too.
Ken Roxon, Crank Brothers. Ken Roxon, you coming on the podcast. I'll speak to Crank Brothers. You heard it here. Message him. Tell him to hit us on the podcast. Guys, go check out what they've got. They got a big product offering, and they are the first sponsor of this podcast. So they believed in me. They believed in Sven and I talking a bunch of crap. We're on YouTube as well. If you've enjoyed any of these podcasts, do me a solid. Subscribe to the YouTube. Give us a comment. Till the next one, peace.